Welcome to Sisters in Arms. My name is Kerrie Ann, and we are here to empower minds through education and advocacy and true stories. So let's get started. Today I have Mike Harris from Goal back again. And we have some things to talk about. We wanted to kind of do a little bit of an update and get everybody on the same page with what's going on. And I think there's a few people that are misinformed with some things. So before we start, can you just kind of give us a little lowdown on what Chapter 135 and Act of 2024 is for some of the viewers that are just joining?
Yeah. So Chapter 135 of the Acts of 2024. So that's the statute name. That's the series of statutes that were passed by the legislature and signed by the governor last year that overhaul all of the sections of law, pretty much all of the sections of law that govern firearms ownership, usage, hunting, shooting,
Everything.
What types of guns you can have, what your licensing process looks like, what we have to do to get a license, all of that stuff. So it's just a complete overhaul of the state's entire firearms law.
Yeah, it stemmed. Well, let's go back to it. It started from HD 4420, changed numbers 6 times, right?
Yeah, so I mean, you can go even farther back. So it started with the
listening
NYSERPA v. Bruin, and that passed in June of 2022, and then in July of 2022, or it didn't pass. They issued that decision in June of 2022, and then in July of 2022, right before the legislature broke for their recess for the campaign season, they passed a section of law. They put a section of law into the Judiciary Technology Bond Bill. That was the reaction to Bruin, where they made firearms licenses a shall issue license instead of a may issue, which was in line with Bruin, and then kind of codified suitability to the extent that was really possible to do. But anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. So then fast forward to the beginning of the next legislative session, the Speaker of the House went to Mike Day, who's the representative, who is the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, and said, hey, we want to do a giant omnibus bill of all the firearms laws and overhaul everything. Yeah. Let's go. So they...
it's almost like they had a temper tantrum.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what it was. It was, the Supreme Court's not going to tell us that we're doing this wrong. So, they had a complete overhaul of the state's firearms laws. They embarked on this, I don't know, how long was it? 6 months?
Yeah,
9
the
months?
listening tours? Yeah, it was like 9 months.
It was really long.
It started like January, ended, I think, June 2nd or something, and then June 20-something.
Yeah, it was like 6 months long.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
So it was a listening tour where
they weren't listening.
where the legislators were invited to all different parts of the state, where they would be able to kind of hear from the people in those different communities. And every tour stop had a different theme, where it was like, blah, 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 and firearms.
Yeah, suicide,
blah, 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 and firearms.
Mental health, domestic violence, hunting.
And this, and they would put some nexus between that topic and firearms together and have a discussion about it. There would be a panel up in front. I mean, at the beginning, we were a little bit optimistic about it, where we were in pretty much constant contact with Rep. Day's office about things. They were asking us a lot of questions. We had recommended people for panels, and they actually listened to us and put a lot of those folks on. Like John Green, Toby Leary from Cape Gunworks was on there.
I think John Pajak
from our board was on there at one point. We had a couple of folks who were, experts on mental health issues that we had recommended too. So it was, we started out the process as kind of a partner, and then it kind of devolved from there when they I use the term partner loosely. That it's not really a completely accurate way to describe it, but for lack of a better way to say it. And then the relationship kind of dissolved once we saw the actual text of the bill, and it was kind of just a wish list of every gun control item that you can think of.
And you know what, it's funny because, I mean, we have so much to talk about, but what I find funny is that there's a lot of gun owners today that don't even know that this law passed. And I think more shows like this need to happen, and people need to pay attention, because there's a lot of things in the bill that could indirectly affect you.
I mean,
without even knowing.
Yes. So I mean, for all of the firearms owners that don't know that this passed, I guess that's crazy to me to think about that as a prospect. But I will tell you, 100% of gun owners, ourselves included at Goal, don't 100% understand all of the aspects.
Well, they do it on
of this
purpose
law.
because the language is so.
There's ambiguity. There's weird contradictions in it. There's poor drafting in it. There's some vindictive things in there that are designed to trip people up on purpose, I think. And there's no way to completely understand this thing. Every time we try to dive back into it and figure out and kind of reassess things, there's another topic that gets brought up, and we've probably misunderstood or misinterpreted. And and a lot of that stuff is based on the reality of what's going on the ground with folks. What DAs are charging people with sometimes contradicts what the law actually says. We're seeing folks get charged with some crimes that they shouldn't be, where the grandfathering dates are what they are, but their DAs are still going after people for certain things. We're talking to lawyers constantly about their interpretations of what the law actually says. So every time we talk to somebody about what we think it says, so they bring up another topic or another way to interpret it that kind of changes our interpretation. So it looks like we don't know what we're doing, but we kind of don't know what we're doing at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think
it's crazy.
I think too, as John Green does these law classes, there's certain questions that are
that
asked.
slideshow has evolved 9 times.
9
since he
times.
started doing
But
it,
I know
at
that
least.
people ask me a question, I'm like, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
And then we go back and look at it again, and we're like, oh, well, it could be, and it might be, and yeah, okay, so it might be this.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy how it's involving. I do really want to, before we dive into the hearings, I do want to mention that part of this law, maybe you can talk about this sensitive places with town halls.
Oh, yeah, town halls, yep.
I was very fortunate to get my town hall to opt out, but I was also completely surprised that nobody knew about it. Not even the police chiefs knew. Some of the police, retired police officer, he's like, oh no, we can carry. Oh no, not with this new law. Nobody really knew.
Yeah.
And so
they don't advertise there would be a lot of weird commercials on TV if every time the state passed a new law, they had to advertise it or something like that. It's, they say the saying is ignorance of the law is no excuse for breaking it. So it is on you as a citizen of the state you live in and the country you live in to understand the law. I mean, and to know and understand it. So, that's a burden that we all kind of have to accept.
Well, that's why I think that Goal is an amazing resource.
Well, that's why like institutions like Goal exist.
Yep.
Is because, you're not going to, for a lot of people, firearms ownership is not the end-all be-all of their lives. So, when things like this happen, they're not studying this stuff over and over again, just like we are. We're the ones who are tasked with ensuring that our folks
and on the website, if you go to goal.org on the website, on the very top, if you click on Chapter 135, we break it down.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure, yeah, we break it down to this, probably needs to be updated here and there, but.
We have updated it countless times.
That's just crazy.
I mean, number one, one of the aspects of this bill that was so ridiculous is how long it is. First of all,
Yep.
It's like 150 pages. I think it's 149 sections, or give or take a few. And they released the final version of the bill at 8 p.m.
Yeah, that's right.
on a Wednesday.
And expected everybody to vote on it.
The vote was at 1 p.m. the next day on a Thursday.
And how can you expect a politician who has no clue, they're not instructors, they're probably not even gun owners, some of them, to even understand what they're even
Kerrie
looking
Ann,
at?
before we even get to the point of understanding what you're looking at, they didn't have enough time to read it. Just simple reading. I mean, comprehension aside, you didn't have time to read it before it was time to vote on it. I mean, if you weren't monitoring it from the beginning and it wasn't an issue area that you're really passionate about in the legislature, and you're just kind of, you can't be an expert on everything, especially when you're a politician.
Right, but that's why you rely on your constituents.
Yes, and you also rely on also rely on your legislative leadership to kind of guide you in a direction that is going to, align with the loose concept of morality that your party has. So, a lot of the folks that voted for this thing probably did so based upon their trust of the Speaker and the Judiciary and the Judiciary Committee. So, that is what it is. That's kind of where that stuff lives.
So I go back to the opting out. I want to.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No. Can you tell us? Like, I can explain it, and why don't you explain it, and I'll tell you what I did. And
so Section 152 of the bill, or of the statute at this point, I guess. The statute establishes a whole bunch of new sensitive places where you can't carry, even if you have a license. And included among that list are town buildings and town offices and town property of different kinds. And in addition to that, them being on the list, so they're automatically considered to be sensitive places unless your town votes to opt out of the sensitive places restrictions. So you can get there kind of two ways. Massachusetts, we have town form of government and city form of government. Town form of government has your board of selectmen and your town meeting. That's how things get done. So you can your board of selectmen can propose it, and
which one town just recently did,
and they can vote on it and do that themselves, or they can send it to town meeting, or you can do it by citizen petition, which is what I did.
Yep. So we were really, I was pretty fortunate to get that to pass. I'm so excited.
Yeah, good job.
That was a crazy night, but I've had a lot of people reach out to me like, oh, I didn't know I can't carry in the town hall. I go in there all the time to pay my taxes. It's a right to farm town. I always carry it. Blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? You have a right to carry. It's your right.
Yep.
And now they had no idea. And so I had about probably a dozen people so far reach out and say, how do I do this? So we did a really great video, so I'm referring them to that video that we did for Goal, and I'm giving them the language so they can do their own citizens petition. So not to take up any more time, but if you are interested to learn more about that, contact me at Kerrie at goal.org, Kerrie at goal.org, or Mike, and we can help you through the process.
That's basically just looking at what your charter says for your town and going through the citizens petition process. But we can, like you said, we can help you get the language
and some talking
together.
points. Yep, awesome. So another part, because there's a lot of parts of this lovely bill that we're looking at right now.
140 plus parts of it.
Yay. Is the live fire training and certification part of it, which,
oh boy,
as an instructor, and so I want to kind of have you talk about this because there was a hearing. There was three. There
was 2 hearings. Yep.
Two subjects, same subject, 3 hearings, 2 hearings on the same subject.
Yes.
And but So I think there was some confusion I felt, because I watched one with you, and you and I had to shut it off because we were like, no, this is going south.
it was just...
It was not necessarily. So the hearing was about live fire and serialization?
Yeah, so there were 3 different hearings. So it's kind of, there's a little bit of nuance to it. So the first hearing was about so every time a statute passes, there's usually language in the statute that will say, if necessary, that whatever executive office of the executive branch must promulgate regulations to enforce such and such provision of the statute. So in this case, the new registration and serialization requirements it obligated the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to write new regulations that would effectuate those changes. So,
and what would those changes be for that? Like, now, were they requiring serialization?
Yeah, so everything you have from now on has to be serialized. You can't have a ghost gun or anything anymore. You can't
make your own
unserialized stuff
Yep.
that exists after the Gun Control Act of 1968. So if you make your own or whatever like that, you have to get a serial number from the state that has to be put on in a certain manner before you can complete
the processing, right?
Complete building it.
Yeah.
So whenever an executive agency has to write new regulations, they have to hold a public hearing in Massachusetts. That's usually the rule. The statute can get around that if they write it a different way, or they can specify certain ways that they have to get done. So they held a hearing on the registration and serialization requirements.
And it was supposed to be done in person, but then,
Well,
from what I understand, they extended it because...
That's a different one.
Yeah.
That's the other hearing.
Oh,
so the serialization
okay.
hearing was its own thing,
Okay.
where they were writing the regulations. They showed them to everybody. They said, here, these are what they're going to look like. We need some comments from experts or the public on them. So that's what that was. That was a straightforward regulatory hearing.
Okay.
The next 2 that had to do with live fire training was a little more nuanced. It wasn't a straight regulatory hearing. So what those hearings were for were to hear from the public and range experts and ranges and anybody who is a stakeholder about the subject before EOPSS, which is Public Safety and Security, before they wrote the report that had to go to the legislature with their recommendations.
On how to handle the live fire
yes,
portion.
Yes, or on what it should look like. So the statute said that they would need to write a report on the feasibility of doing this and send it to the legislature by a certain date. And the part of the process of writing that report included them holding 2 public hearings in 2 separate parts of the state, which they did not do. They held 2 hearings remotely.
Because of the COVID.
Because Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 was passed back on March 7th, or was signed by the governor on March 17th, that extended the COVID-19 provisions of the open meeting law to April of 2027, supposedly, but supposedly.
Isn't it done?
But what it allowed agencies and anybody subject to the open meeting law to do is to hold hearings remotely in lieu of going to the district. So this is problematic in 2 ways for this statute, was because, number one, the statute said what it said, and this just allows that to be bypassed. I'm in favor. I think it's a great idea to allow people to join meetings remotely if they can't make it there in person.
I agree.
That's great. I think that's a fantastic way to do that. However, with this subject in particular, it's important for EOPSS to understand the issue before they make their recommendations to the legislature. And in order to understand this issue in particular, you would have to go out into these ranges and these places where this training is supposed to take place.
So they can physically see and understand what they're looking at.
Exactly, because Massachusetts is unique.
Yep.
I say this 100 times a day. We do not have any public ranges in Massachusetts. And I can only think of like 6 for-profit ranges across the state that would allow this type of training to take place. The rest of which are operated,
private.
owned, and maintained by private clubs.
Yeah, in order to be, for a club to run, they rely on their members.
Yes. So you have membership that is paying for and maintaining, operating, and governing these facilities.
For the reason being, they want to go there, train, and
actually use the
be more
facilities they pay
proficient
for.
with their firearms.
Yep. And so, we have an estimated 30 to 40,000 new applicants a year. And in order to apply, you have to have already taken your training. So there's probably more than 30 to 40,000 a year that actually have to go and take this training.
And because
where are they going to go?
Yeah, where are they going to go? So to go back, because there might be some people that are watching this right now going, live fire, what's going on? So
we don't actually know.
Yeah. So, but to go back to what we're talking about in the bill, in order for right now, it's the same as it was. But when this does change,
well, it's a statute now. It's not a bill anymore.
Yep. It's a bill. Yeah, it's a law.
So technically, it has changed, but it's just not in effect yet.
Yeah, in effect. Thank you.
Yeah.
So in order for that to happen, the new requirements for somebody to get their license to carry part of it is live fire, de-escalation, what's a certificate. There's a whole bunch of stuff now.
There's a written test you have to take before the end. But we also don't know what the live fire training is going to look like.
Right. So that's what this is all coming from.
Yeah, distance, amount of shots you have to take, percentage of hits and where.
And what classes are going to be accepted.
Like.
Yep.
Yeah.
All that.
So we don't know what that is actually going to look like yet. And that's what this process is supposed to do, in effect.
You and I went to, well, we both popped on, and so you and Jim testified.
Yes.
And Garrett did a wonderful job testifying.
Did an awesome job.
But
Charlie Cook did a great job, too.
Yep, Charlie Cook. There was a few others that did a really great job testifying. But I think
Jim DeCecca.
Yep. There was a bunch of them, a bunch of people. But then there was some other people that I don't think they totally, can we just kind of talk about that? Because I don't think they totally understood. Honest to God, when I sent in written testimony, I was coming from it in my head from a, instructor standpoint.
Which is good. That's who they need to, that's who they need to hear from also.
But I also added in that it's also going to, affect the members of these clubs too, because now where are they going to, so there was a lot of people that misunderstood, and I'm not sure if it really helped us.
That was one of our, so a lot of people hopped on and spoke about like the constitutionality of this new law and stuff, and that wasn't what that hearing was. That wasn't, a legislative hearing and a regulatory hearing are two very different things.
Right.
Regulatory hearing is very narrow. It has to do with the matter at hand, the specific section of law that they're putting regulations in place to effectuate. Like the law has already passed. It's already law. The regulatory hearings are just what part of the organization is going to enforce this? Who's going to take the slips? Like, are they going to go to Janice on the 3rd floor to sign this piece of paper before they have to bring the photocopies to Dave on the 8th floor? Like, it's that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It's not. It's the nuts and bolts of how it's going to go into effect.
Right.
So it's that was a little esoteric. That's not exactly what they look like, but the statute themselves was not up for debate. That's not what was up for discussion. It was how the EOPSS was going to handle it.
Right.
So there was a lot. I'm not going to call anybody out. Everybody gets to speak their piece, but there are a lot of folks who
misunderstood.
The assignment.
I think that's the word. Misunderstood the assignment.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just that's what it is. We live in a.
So do you think we're going to get another chance to go back, and is there going to be another hearing? What's the next step as far as that goes?
So this was a preliminary hearing before the report was sent to the State House.
And sent to the legislature. Is it already sent?
I don't know. I haven't seen that yet.
Yep.
I don't think so, but we'll get to see the report possibly, and then the legislature will take those recommendations and possibly change the statute around if they have to. I mean, they're pretty agile at the moment given the makeup of the legislature. So they can do that stuff. But I do have a feeling once the regulations are actually written and going to be put in place, I think they'll probably hold another hearing to get comments on the regs themselves. Right. But this wasn't even about the regulations. This was before the report was submitted to the legislature.
Because to go back to, I mean, I don't think, as we mentioned, to regulate something like this, how's the state going to handle this? Because as you mentioned before, they're putting a lot of pressure on private clubs, and are these private clubs going to allow it? What's that mean for their insurance, liability insurance? What does that mean for their members? What does that mean for the clubs now? With some clubs don't even allow instructors to teach out of there.
I mean, I have Fifth and 14th Amendment concerns about takings.
Yeah, that too. There's a lot of things. So, I mean, I think shows like this, Toby Leary does a great job with his shows. We're doing more and more YouTube channels for goal to get everybody educated, to help them understand the process. We're going to do another episode, you and I, in a few moments, talking about the rest of this stuff. But before we end, is there anything that you want to add regarding the live fire component and the hearing and what you witnessed and went through? And
I mean, you can see our testimony on the website on goal.org. If you go there, you can find our letter that we submitted. And, you know, I had posted Garrett's.
I was just going to ask that.
I posted Garrett's testimony on YouTube, so everybody can take a look at that on our YouTube channel, GoalVid on YouTube. But, I mean, it was what it was. The hearings were held remotely when they should have been in person. I don't think EOPSS has a good view right now of what the limitations of private clubs actually are and what they can actually accept and handle versus what they're going to be asking of them.
It would be nice if they were forced to do like a field trip to some clubs, just so they have an understanding.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the whole point of that was supposed to be, I think.
Because, I mean, live fire, with me as an instructor, I have live fire. I don't agree with it being mandated at all. That's not something I feel, you know, just because you add live fire, in my opinion, to a class doesn't make you proficient enough to understand how to shoot. That is, it just gives you a little bit of a taste of how fun it is and how exciting it is, and
just holding
just a different perspective.
And talking about something theoretically is very different than doing it in person.
Exactly.
But I also want to make sure to disclaim this a little bit and just say, in no way does Goal endorse not training.
Oh, of course. Training is
our
essential.
opposition to this mandate has nothing to do with our endorsement of live fire training.
Right.
If you're going to get a license and there's a class that offers live fire training over one that does not, you should always take the one with live fire training.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. Mandating, whole different story.
Mandating is a different story.
Well, thanks, Mike, for coming on. Stay tuned. We'll be back.